against Collingwood, but that's the way the finals we think will probably shape up.
Yeah. Essendon aren't going to make the finals. How are they situated?
Well, Essendon made the finals last year, didn't they? Got hammered in that first one. Look, real worries for Essendon, and the coach has been under the pump all year, mainly not because they lose, but because they lose by big margins, because they get more scored against them than any other team. And you just hear talk back after every Essendon big loss. The supporters are angry. The members are saying they won't renew next year.
They just want blood, the supporters, don't they, for some reason?
You get a feeling that, that Essendon hierarchy's worried about sponsorship and coterie groups. So it's an unpleasant situation out there at the moment.
You're talking about the way they play and the amount of goals scored against them. Some of the stats are a bit damning, aren't they?
Well, they are. If you have a look at that average points against from 2008, 2010, since Matthew Knights has been in charge, it's his third year there at Essendon. And that's the worry that people have, that this Essendon team hasn't got enough defence about it, not just the back six, but right through the side. And you can see that big scores on average are kicked against them.
They're the ones that hurt too, the big blowouts, the 60-point losses. West Coast have had their issues in the last couple of years, but 12 plus 10-goal losses in Matthew Knight's time with what I reckon's a list that's got a fair bit of talent about it. I still think there's more quality. They've had some injury concerns, but... there is a groundswell of emotion around Windy Hill.
So what do they do?
Well, they've also had a lot of team changes. That's the thing that worries me, and I've spoken about this through the season.
The line-up to unsettled?
Well, often you get the paper on a Friday and Essendon has had 4, 5 and 6 changes, players coming in and out of the team. It's a revolving door. I don't think that gives the young players a chance to settle, get their confidence up. And you can see there that, so many changes that they've had in their lineup. So Matthew Knights is under the pump. There's no doubt about that. But, I feel a bit for Matthew Knights. I'm not convinced Matthew Knights should have been appointed as coach of that club. You go back 3 years ago, after Kevin Sheedy era, their chairman, Ray Horsburgh, he stated that the coach, when they were looking for a new coach, had to be a past premiership player and from a successful background. Well, that didn't happen. And Peter Jackson, who was the CEO, I think he had a big hand in appointing Matthew Knights.
And reappointing.
Yeah, and I believe he wanted someone who wasn't at all attached to Sheedy, either or pro or again.
Yeah.
And I think he wanted a neutral. So he appointed Matthew Knights for 3 years, and then in the second year of that appointment extended it by 2, which I just couldn't believe. Why would you do that? And the other thing, Luke, and this isn't a knock on Matthew Knights, it's more on the Essendon Football Club for making that appointment. Matthew Knights had 4 years as a coach. He had 1 year coaching the Port Adelaide Magpies in the South Australian competition. That was 1 year which was unsuccessful, 6th out of 9 teams, and at the end of that 12 months he was happy to walk away and they were happy to see him walk away. He then coached the Bendigo Bombers for 3 years, and the first year there was a 4th, the next year they were 12th, and the third year they came 8th, and they got beaten in their one final. So for 4 years as a coach, it's not a wonderful background. And I think Peter Jackson and the people who he was with that made that appointment, they've got a lot to answer for. So I'm really worried about him because I have a feeling that he's got 2 years to go, Luke. I'm not sure he's going to get it.
Well, he's got 2 weeks to go, really, hasn't he? And they'll do a huge review at the end of the year. Now, it's an easy, low-hanging fruit to pick off and mention James Hird in a conversation when you talk about Essendon. It's an obvious one.
Well, Mark Williams was at the club last week.
There is enough people talking about the fact that James Hird's having a serious think about it, and Mark Williams potentially either as
a
mentor coach, or even to take it for 2 years and give James Hird the experience the way Collingwood have done with Nathan Buckley.
Big call to cut a bloke for 2 years to go.
It is a big thing, but they would get the money in membership and sponsorship and coterie groups in the first 5 minutes of being able to sign a deal.
Yeah, this is a man's livelihood we're talking about. He's a young man.
I know. For Matthew Knights. I think Matthew Knights has been a great person in football, and we're not trying to be malicious here in doing it.
What I'm trying to say is it's ruthless, isn't it?
It is ruthless. I'll go back when I coached at Richmond. I had a 3-year deal. Towards the end of the second year, there was rumblings that I should go, and I was told, "You're safe, you're okay." And then 3 weeks later, I was told by the same people, "You're going to have to go because we're worried about membership for next year." Sponsors are calling up saying that they're not going to renew. So those sort of things happen behind the scenes, and people can tell you one thing, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, things change, and then they'll come to you and they'll say, "Hey, happy to sacrifice one person for the football club." And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it happens.
Happens, yeah. Ben Cousins looks like he's going to announce his retirement tomorrow, guys. I think that's a good result for both Ben and the footy club.
Is the documentary play any part in that quarters coming up?
I guess we'll find out tomorrow. He's got a media conference scheduled for 10:30 in the morning.
It has to play a part in it. He's had this documentary going for 18 months. This will be the last 5-8 minutes of the documentary. Ben Cousins announcing his retirement as a player. And I'll tell you what, the AFL... I reckon the AFL will be very pleased that this decision's going to be made, because they'll want this documentary out there, shown, and then move on. They don't want this leading into grand final week. I've got no doubt that the AFL are pushing Richmond, saying, hey, make this decision sooner rather than later so that it can be done and we can then focus on the finals in September.
10:30 tomorrow morning, Ben Cousins will tell us exactly what's happening with the rest of his football career. Hopefully he gets up a farewell game, because he certainly did hurt his